Hello, this is Professor Angelia. With today's lesson, we are on part 7 of Works of Arts Child Development and Psychology class. See the brain, it's going. And last time we were talking about having a child with developmental disabilities. That's something I know about. Two of mine had to have intervention in school, and one of them was well adapted enough where he didn't have to have that, but he is still on, the spectrum. Um, so I know a lot of you know about that sort of thing. So we're going to start off on important accident prevention measures for families to observe during the toddler years. Because, them little people, their brains aren't wired all together yet, and they do crazy things and can get hurt. Motor vehicles. Maintain child in a car seat. Now, I know back in our day, that wasn't a thing, but it definitely is now, and you should do that. Not just the seat belt. If, back in our day, some cars didn't even have those in there either. But today they do, so use them. Do not be distracted from safe driving by a child in the car. And we were out and got hit in the rear end one day because of that. She said, I was yelling at the kids in the back. Okay, you can still yell at the kids in the back while you keep your eyes on the road, because I did that. And if it gets out of hand, and I'd say, okay, do I need to pull this car over? And then usually that stopped it. Do not allow a child to play outside unsupervised. And this is something I see in my neighborhood. And this is something that people who grew up in the country tend to do because they felt like it was a safe environment for their child to be unsupervised outside. It's not. There was an incident where me and another family member were molested by a person who was working on a farm. So it is not safe even out there, but definitely not, in the city. It only takes a second for someone to snatch your child. My children were outside playing on the swing, and my dogs were out there with them. And so I came inside, was starting dinner, and then I heard the dogs barking. So I went back out the back door, and two men were coming over my back fence into my backyard. What do you think their intentions were? Probably not good, huh? Do not allow the children to operate electronic garage doors because children have been crushed under garage doors. Supervise your toddler too young to be left alone on a tricycle. And any child under 100 pounds is too young to be left alone, much less on a tricycle. But tricycles do have a tendency to turn over. The wheel can go sideways and, jackknifes just like a truck and falls over, and then your kid's hurt. Teach safety with pedaling toys. Look before crossing the driveway, and do not cross the streets. My children were not allowed to leave the driveway until they were 10 years old. We were following that, 100-pound, 10-year-old rule, because, it's people do get snatched over that. Women get snatched and men get snatched over that. But that's a good general rule because, a fifth grader, a 10-year-old can kick and scream and fight back a little bit so that hopefully they'll get some attention. Falls. Keep house windows closed. I was talking with Bishop Polk about this yesterday. Or keep secure screens in place. Place gates at the top and bottom of stairs. We actually still have baby gates around here that I use to keep the dogs out of their rooms now. Supervise at playgrounds. And I've seen this at the park down from my house. Parents walking off and leaving their kid play on the swing. And I saw a man coming up and talking to some kids one day. And I said, do you know them? And he just kind of took off, and I went up to the mom. I said, there was a man coming over here talking to your kids while you were over here sitting at the picnic table talking to your friend with your back turned. And, evidently your friend wasn't paying attention either because she didn't tell you. So, pay attention to your kids. It only takes a second, folks. It only takes a second for your kid to be a statistic. Do not allow the child to walk with sharp object in hand or mouth, or a dull object like a sucker. My ex-mother-in-law used to let the kids walk around with a sucker. And as soon as I see it, I'd snatch a toddler up. And I said, you can't do that. If this kid falls with the sucker in the mouth, it's going to jab it back in the throat and they're going to be choking. You know, you can't do this. Raise crib rails and check to make sure they are locked before walking away from a crib. I mean, so many babies, they're going to fall off the crib eventually anyway. That's just a rite of passage. They're going to fall over the side because they think they get big enough and I'm going to get out of this crib. That's going to happen. Rite of passage. But, you know, when the child is small, you don't want them rolling out. You don't want them falling out any sooner, you know, than they're old enough to do. So make sure that crib rail is locked. Aspiration. There's so many deaths, so many SIDS deaths every year. This is important stuff. Examine toys for small parts that could be aspirated, you know, sucked into the lungs. Remove those that appear dangerous, like little sewed-on button eyes, you know, someone made in arts and crafts. I mean, if it's homemade craft that has stuff like that, it's not for your kid to play with. It looks cute. You can sit around in your house. You know, I decorate with some stuffed animals in my house. But anything with buttons or things like that should not be given to your child because it's a choking hazard or an aspiration hazard. Do not feed the toddler popcorn. I know of a 2-year-old who choked to death on popcorn. Peanuts are things like that. Anything that is too hard for them to chew because, I mean, if they're a toddler, you know, they don't have all the jaw teeth yet, and they don't need to be chewing on hard things. You shouldn't give them anything hard. Urge children to not eat while running. And we see kids that, you know, they get the ice cream, they want to run, you know. Don't say no. Eating time, you sit down, it's eating time. Then you can get back up and run when you're done because you don't want them to choke. Do not leave the toddler alone with a balloon. One of my uncles was in a car wreck and he was blowing up a balloon and the balloon got sucked down his throat and he was choking on the balloon. Drowning, and we hear some of those happen every year, and I just don't understand how this happens nowadays. Parents just, I don't even want to, you know, I don't want anyone to sue me because I say it's just absolute neglect, you know, if you're leaving your child alone near a pool, but I certainly wouldn't do it. Do not leave toddler alone in the bathtub. You hear of that every now and then. Kid drowning in the bathtub. Or near water, including buckets of cleaning water. And people don't think about that. You know, sometimes you know, might have a mop bucket or, you know, a 5-gallon bucket. I mean, I heard a story of that, of a boy that fell. He was a toddler and he was looking down in the bucket and the bucket was full of water. And the bucket was probably heavier than him. So he fell in head first. Evidently, he couldn't get out and he drowned in the bucket. Animal bites. Do not allow the toddler to approach strange dogs. My own son got bit in the face by my husband's best friend's dog. This dog knew him. We'd been to the house, but evidently that day, the dog was having a bad day, and my son got up in his face and was petting him, and the dog bit him in the face. He still has a scar. Supervise child's play with the family pets. And every now and then you hear this of a dog attacking and even killing the child. I mean, toddlers, they don't have restraint. They might smack, you know, they might pull. And, you know, like anyone else, the pet's only going to handle so much of that before they say stop. But because they have, you know, the big canine teeth, you know, their stop is different than our stop. And your child could get really hurt. Poisoning. Never present medications as candy. Now, this is good, it's sweet, it's good, it's like candy, take it. You know, no, because then they get the idea that some medicine is candy and they could eat that. And then they die. Buy medications with child-proof safety caps if you have children in the house. Now, I'm getting to the point where I've got arthritis in the hands. So I'm looking for the ones that don't have those, but I keep mine all up in the medicine cabinet anyway. So, and I don't have grandkids hanging around yet, so, I don't know. That'll have to change. Put away immediately after use. That's one of my son's bad habits. He'll leave his pill bottles sitting around. I'm like, put that up. Excuse me. Never take medications in front of the child. Now, you might have to, but make sure, you say, oh, this medicine tastes so bad, or, I don't like taking this medicine, so they get the idea this is something you have to do, not something that you're wanting to do because, you're enjoying it. Place all medications and poisons in locked cabinets or overhead shelves where the child cannot reach. We actually built a child-proof cabinet under our sink where you had to push in and then pull up a little lock lever so that the kids can just push, and get in the cabinet where the poisonous stuff is kept. Never leave medications in the parent's purse or pocket where a child could reach. I know one of my little cousins showed me my great aunt's medicine out of her purse one time. So I know the kids do that. Always store food or substances in their original containers, because when you start storing food and substances in a, like a Cool Whip container, and you got some, bug poison that you're going to put, in the yard, a toddler can pull that open and drink that. Use non-lead based paint throughout the house. And I think that's, been talked to death since the 70s, so everybody knows that. Hang plants or sit them high on high surfaces beyond the toddler's grasp, because they will pull these off. They will put them in their mouth. Post telephone number of nearest poison control center by the telephone. I had the numbers, and I actually had stuff programmed into my phone so that my toddlers could just push a button. And we had a little incident with 911 one day because that happened. In all first aid boxes, maintain supply of syrup of Ipecac, an emetic with proper instructions for administering if poisoning should occur. And that's to make them, throw that up. Burns. Buy flame retardant clothing. And it's different now than it was in the 70s from what I understand. And they're actually not making it like they used to. Supposedly all children's clothing have something like that in it. There's sleepwear, but I don't know. It's shaky on that one. Turn handles of pots toward the back of the stove to prevent toddler from reaching up and pulling them down. And they will do that, because I've seen mine want to go to the stove and look and see what's in a pot. They don't understand that when they pull the handle to see what's in there, it's all going to come down on them. They don't have that logic yet. You got to watch out for them. Use Cool Mist vaporizer or remain in the room when a vaporizer is operating so the child is not tempted to play with it. We all, grew up with allergies and we'd have colds. And so a vaporizer is something we knew about. And yes, I remember my brother looking inside of it and things like that. So they will play with it if they have a chance. Keep screen in front of fireplace or heater. And that's something my kids grew up with at the in-laws' house. They had a fireplace. So they got used to fire from a very young age. And you'd have to close that. And we have open flame heaters here in the house because we don't have central heat. We live in a 102-year-old house. And so that's something my children grew up knowing to be cautious around. But if you go to someone's house and your child's not used to that, you need to make sure that, they're protected from the flame. Monitor toddlers carefully when they are near lit candles. That flame is fascinating. And they might want to check that out. Do not leave toddlers unsupervised near hot water faucets. Because, if they can just pull a lever, make the water come on, they think they know what they're doing. They're going to do it. Do not allow toddlers to blow out matches. Teach that fire is not fun. Fire is not a toy. I'm not going to say who, but one of my uncles, would play with matches and lit the grass on fire in the backyard even. So me and my brother copied that with not as good results. Store matches out of reach. That's the best way to keep that from happening. Put them up on a shelf or I have a little container that I keep them in, and when they were younger, it was, closed. It's open now because, my youngest kid's 19. Hopefully he's not playing with fire, but keep electric wires and cords out of a toddler's reach. Cover electrical outlets with safety plugs, and that's something we definitely did. We child-proofed the house before my first son was born. Put those little things in the plugs, and tape the cords back underneath or behind, the furniture so that wasn't a temptation for them. Actually, I've had worse luck with cats doing that than the kids. For some reason, the cats think chewing on a cord might be a thing to do. So you got to watch your kittens as well as your toddlers. In general, know the whereabouts of toddlers at all times. And I have seen in my neighborhood people who just let their toddlers run. A toddler ran out in front of a car, scared me to death. Another toddler was up on top of a car, sitting, had climbed the bumper onto the hood and was climbed the windshield up on, and this kid is still in a diaper. And the one running around in the road, still in a diaper. Whoo! Crazy. You can't do that. You have to watch these children at all times. At all times. And that's why someone in this neighborhood made a comment about my children never getting in that kind of trouble, and only having trouble when well, yeah, because I watched them. When they were little, I went outside with them, to make sure they were safe. And I taught them right from wrong. That's why that happened. It's called good parenting. Hello. Toddlers can climb onto chairs and stools. So you have to watch that. Because they love to do that. Love to climb up in a chair and hold on to the back of the chair and look. You got to make sure things are secure enough. That they could manage, they can turn doorknobs. When my oldest son was 4, he let a man into the house while I was in the bathroom. I don't know what the man's intentions were, but they didn't seem to be very good. And he was holding on to my son. And so I chased him out of my house with a butcher knife. And he yelled, you're crazy. And I'm like, you're right. I am crazy. Don't come back. And he didn't. Be aware that the frequency of accidents increases when the family is under stress and therefore less attentive to children. And I think that's a lot of the problem in this neighborhood and neighborhoods across the country. The stress level. Parents are stressed out. They're especially people in poverty. They're worried about making money. They're worried about, keeping their business going or whatever. And they're not paying attention to the little people. And that's exactly opposite of how it should be. You should be paying attention to the little people first, and then the other stuff should fall behind that. Excuse me, special precautions must be taken at these times. If you are too stressed out to watch your kid, call grandma, call auntie, call somebody to help you out. Because if you can't watch your kid could get hurt, your kid could die, your kid could get kidnapped. I mean, just be there for them people. Them little people you brought into the world, you need to be there for them. Some children are more active, curious, and impulsive, and therefore more vulnerable to accidents than others. My oldest one has ADD. He was definitely more curious. My husband was like, why does he ask so many questions? Because he got tired of it. And so I have to answer his questions. He was a little more hyper and impulsive. We got him some help later on when it got to the point where we felt like he needed some. But don't let the school just randomly put your child on Ritalin. You need to talk to a doctor. We took him to a psychiatrist, and at first he didn't need the meds, but then when he started acting a little more impulsive towards other people, then we put him on the meds. So, don't let him zombify your kid just because a teacher thinks he's, too impulsive and she didn't want to deal with it. The pre-operational stage. In this stage, children can use symbols and can judge on the basis of appearance. However, they cannot perform mental operations that, oh my gosh, such as reversibility. This stage is a long one, lasting from about 2 to 7 years of age. Children in the later part of this stage are much more advanced than those in the earlier part. Remember, it is incorrect to use age alone to judge cognitive abilities because everybody develops differently. Because children enter and leave a stage at their own individual rates. So we're going to talk about characteristics, explanations, and examples here. Symbolic function. The ability to use one thing to represent another. A child can use a spoon to represent a hammer. The ability to use words also requires the use of symbols. Deferred imitation. The ability to observe an act and imitate it at a later time. A preschooler can see the teacher exercising and can imitate them later using similar actions without the teacher's presence. And any of you have used some unsavory words, you know that later on your kid can repeat those when they get frustrated. Inability to seriate. The process of placing objects in size order. Preschoolers cannot place 10 blocks of wood in size order. Inability to classify. The process of placing objects in different groups. You know, one of these things is not like the other. Younger preschoolers cannot group plastic objects of varying shapes and colors by shape or color. Older preschoolers make progress in this area. Appearance and reality. The tendency to judge on the basis of appearance. A child shown a red car will correctly identify the color. If a filter that makes the car look black covers the car, the child will say the car is black. When the filter is removed, the child will identify the color as red. Inability to conserve. The inability to understand that quantities remain the same despite changes in their appearance. If shown 2 equal-sized lumps of clay, the preschooler will know they are equal. If one is flattened out, the child will believe that the lumps are no longer the same size. Centering. The tendency to attend to only one dimension at a time. When comparing the contents of a small, thin beaker or a short, fat beaker, the preschooler will do so by comparing only one dimension of each, most probably height, and will ignore the differences in width. Irreversible thinking. The inability to begin at the end of an operation and work back to the start. Preschoolers do not understand that if you add 4 and 2 to make 6, then you can take 2 away from 6 to make 4 again. That's why they don't start trying to teach you that till, first grade. Egocentrism. The inability to understand someone else's point of view. And unfortunately, we still have some adults like that nowadays. If shown a display and asked how someone standing opposite them is seeing it, preschoolers will not be able to visualize the other person's perspective. Preschoolers believe that the world revolves around them. And unfortunately, we do have adults in the world like that. Animism. The belief that inanimate objects have a consciousness or are alive, like their little stuffy friends. Young preschoolers attribute the characteristics of living things to inanimate objects. A preschooler believes that the balloon soared to the ceiling because it did not want to be held. Artificialism. The belief that natural phenomena are caused by human beings. A preschooler will see a lake and say it was made by a group of people digging and then filling it up with water from hoses. Piaget's developmental theory of cognitive psychology. Basic premises. 1. Children do not think or solve problems in the same manner as adults. Any of us parents can tell you that's true. Number 2, this theory emphasizes the importance of the child's active interaction with the environment. Number 3, it sees maturation and experience as more important than formal learning in the child's cognitive development. Number 4, it views cognitive development as occurring in 4 stages. Each stage shows a qualitative leap forward in the child's ability to solve problems and reason logically. Number 5, it offers the most complete description of cognitive development from infancy through childhood available. Value and strength. Number 1, the theory emphasizes the importance of active experience in a child's development. It leads to a view of young children as little scientists, sifting through information and actively coping with the world. Number 2, its descriptions of the way in which children think and approach problems are very helpful in understanding children's behavior. Number 3, many of the sequences for understanding specific concepts are very challenging. Criticisms and weaknesses. Number 1, it may underestimate the influence of learning on cognitive development and the nature of task on the child's performance. Number 2, Piaget's style of research has been criticized. Piaget presented children with a problem and sought to discover how they reasoned and tried to solve the problem. His studies, bless me, were not controlled. The ecological system. Microsystem refers to the relations between the child and the immediate environment. Mesosystem refers to the interrelationships of settings in the child's immediate environment. Exosystem refers to social settings that affect the child but do not directly impinge on him or her. And macrosystem refers to the attitudes, mores, beliefs, and ideologies of the culture. And I'm having a problem reading this because it's sideways in the book. It's a graph. Okay, so you start out with your microsystem, which is the parent and the child. Then you move out to your mesosystem, which is school and friends. Then your exosystem, which is government and social policy, friends and the parent's social network, and then the parent's places of employment. Then you move out to the macro system, which is the ethnic group, the culture, and the historical events that shape this society. Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory. Basic premises. Number 1, the person cannot be isolated from the context of development. Number 2, human development is enmeshed, gosh, I'm having trouble talking today, enmeshed in multiple environments at the same time. Number 3, ecological theory links these environments to each other, noting how each operates and affects the others. Now you know why I'm retiring, folks. The tongue don't work no more. Number 4, transitions bring about changes in roles that change how people think and act and how they are treated. Values and strengths. Number 1, it encourages a broader view of human development. Number 2, it shows how social values and priorities that operate through public policy may affect the child. Number 3, It emphasizes the importance of specific transitions, such as beginning school or becoming a parent. Criticisms and weaknesses. Number one, this theory is very complex, requiring an in-depth look at the many contexts of development. And number two, some question whether the theory can be practically used as a basis for understanding development. Excuse me. Development of locomotor skills. And we're going to talk about a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So running. The 3-year-old runs with lack of control and stops and starts. The 4-year-old runs with control over starts, stops, and turns. Speed is increasing. And the 5-year-old running and established patterns and used in play activities, and the speed is increasing. Jumping. The 3-year-old, 42% are proficient. Jumping pattern lacks differentiation. In the 4-year-old, 72% are proficient. Jumping pattern characterized by more preliminary crouch. And in the 5-year-olds, 81% are skillful. Overall jumping pattern was more smooth and rhythmic. So, by the time they're 5, they can probably jump some rope. Hopping. Can hop 10 times consecutively on both feet. Great difficulty experienced with the hop pattern when they're 3 years old. 4-year-old, 33% are proficient. And the 5-year-olds, 79% become proficient during this year. Climbing. And the 3-year-old ascends stairs using mark time foot pattern. Boom, 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 boom. During this year, ascending stairs is achieved with alternate foot. Descending stairs mostly with mark time foot pattern. 4-year-olds ascends and descends stairs with alternate foot pattern. And in the 5-year-olds, climbing skill increases. 70% can climb a rope ladder with their bottom free. And then skipping. 3-year-olds, skip is characterized by a shuffle step. It's not a real skip quite yet. 4-year-olds, 14% can skip. One-footed skip still prevalent. Overall movement stiff and undifferentiated. And in the 5-year-olds, skips mostly on the balls of the feet. 72% are skillful and can skip with alternate foot pattern. And that's where we're going to leave off today. I hope you found this educational, informational, or even just entertaining. And I'll leave a link in the description where you can help me out if you want to continue presenting these classes. And that's it for today. Until next time.